Hello friends, welcome again. Now in this video, I will share with you practice and sample questions for Amazon Work Style Assessment. What I intend to do is share with you those practice questions and not only share with you, but also explain to you how you should go about answering them and what is the rationale behind the answer for each of those questions. So when you receive the test and when the questions are slightly different from the practice questions that I have in this video, you still understand what is the rationale and you can apply that rationale in order to answer any question that may come your way in the Amazon Work Style Assessment and hence be able to ace the Amazon Work Style Assessment. Now I've made a separate video where I explain what is Amazon Work Style Assessment test, what are the parameters, what are the guidelines, and what are the tips and tricks that you can use to ace it. For that particular video, I will leave the link in the description of this video. Other than that, I will be making multiple videos on other different kind of tests that Amazon has, such as Amazon Work Simulation Test and other cognitive tests that Amazon has for different roles. So I'll make different videos on that and I will leave the link for all those videos in the description of this video. Now, this particular video may also have multiple series depending on the number of questions I am able to amass and hence able to share with you. If there are a lot of questions, then I may break this video into multiple videos, which is into multiple parts. And this moves me to the next part, which is who am I and how do I have command on this subject? So I'm a career and coach and a mentor. I coach individuals on how to get a job, how to ace interviews, and how to kind of land their dream job and dream career and how to grow in their career. Now, I have a lot of people who I coach who have applied for big companies, including Amazon. So when they apply for Amazon, they appear in these tests, they come back and share the feedbacks with me in terms of what they received in the test, so much so that at times they even share the recording or the screenshot of the questions they received. So I've collected all those questions, all those screenshots as sample questions and practice questions for this particular video. So I'm sharing all of those which I've received from my followers, from the people I coach who have appeared in Amazon test and have given their feedback and have shared those questions back with me. So I'm using all those questions as the material. As I continue to grow these materials and I get and receive more questions, I will be making multiple videos for the same purpose. Now, on the same lines, let me also call out, in case you find any value from this video, I have to ask for you. One, press the like button, and second, press the subscribe button along with the bell icon. By the way, one statistic, 76% of you who view my channel and videos on my channel do not subscribe to my channel. So let's improve that number for me and start subscribing to my channel as you view this video. On this channel, I post content pertaining to career and financial success for early and mid-career professionals. Other than that, if you want to support me in making unbiased content like this, you can do so on patreon.com. I have my Patreon page there and I will leave the link to my Patreon page in the description of this video. Now let's get rolling into the practice test. Now, one piece of advice which I cannot recommend enough is that for you to ace this Amazon test, you need to practice. Now, what I've done is I've gone online and I've sifted through many websites in order to find an online test which simulates the Amazon test as close as possible. And there is one website that I found, so I'm leaving the link to that website in the description of this video because many of my followers, they reach out to me and they ask me how can we go about practicing and where can we find other sample tests. So here is this website, so leaving the link in the description of this video. Now, before going into the sample questions, let me quickly call out what is Work Style Assessment Test. Amazon has 14 leadership principles and they want to judge you or gauge you whether you possess those 14 leadership principles or qualities in you or not. So they'll give you these questions where you'll make choices whether you perform or you are more likely a particular character or you're more likely to have a particular attitude or work preference or work style. And basis that, they will judge whether you have those personality traits that they are looking for or not. So when you're answering these questions, make sure you first have reviewed the 14 leadership principles. By the way, for that, I've made a separate video where I talk about those 14 leadership principles. You can check it on my YouTube page. So make sure you understand them first, internalize them, and then go and appear for the test. Because as I will be taking you through these questions, I will be also reflecting on which leadership principle this is. And hence that would be kind of the rationale you should be using in answering these questions. Each question will give you a scenario, whether you perform or behave in a certain way in the workplace or not, and then you have to choose more likely or most likely. Now, the trick here is that for every question, there are two different statements. So first you have to choose between the two statements, which one is less bad or which one is the best, or reflects the leadership principle. And then within that statement, you have to choose whether you are more likely or most likely to be that statement. Well, you'll understand it better once we start going through the practice questions. So question number first, I prefer stable situations. And second question here we have is, I anticipate issues and plan accordingly. Now here, I prefer stable situations. There is no business scenario which is stable, right? So business is always complex and there are things which are always changing. So it won't be the left side, it will be the right side, which is I anticipate issues and plan accordingly. So you'll have to select this. So for each of these questions, what you need to do is first determine which side would you select, which side is the least bad or which side is the best, in terms of it reflects the closest to the leadership principles or it is least bad from the leadership principles that Amazon has. So here, I anticipate issues and plan accordingly. Now here, the leadership principle that is kind of reflected here is are right a lot, because you are able to anticipate issues and then plan accordingly and then hence end up being right. And here I will select most likely. Question number 2, I believe planning ahead leads to a better outcome versus once a while people find errors in my work. Of course, once a while people find errors in my work is a bad no scenario. So we won't go on the right side, we'll stick on the left side and I will select most like me here. This is a leadership principle around ownership. Now here, for the most part, what you will find is that for each of the selections, you will be geared towards selecting most like me because you want to demonstrate that this leadership principle is most like me as against more like me. However, it would be nice to throw in some more like me in middle as well, just for variety's sake. Otherwise, it may just sound you are being too extreme with regards to your choices. Next one is, I find it difficult to pursue the same goal for a long time. And second is, I will usually keep pursuing a work stream until I think is no longer useful. Now here, the first one, the left one, I find it difficult to pursue the same goal for a long time is kind of a bad option, because what if the goal is very profitable, it's good, it's just that you are getting bored, which is not a good thing. So I will usually keep pursuing a work stream until I think is no longer useful. So till you've gotten all the juice out of it. And here, maybe you can select C just to throw some variety. By C, I mean more like me. And here you can simply select more like me instead of most like me just to throw in some variety. Next one, I prefer to spend most of my time doing work that uses my current skill set. So whatever you know today, you are kind of in your comfort zone. And second is, I'm motivated to learn about new topics when I see a short-term benefit from that knowledge. So do you work outside your comfort zone? And here the leadership principle I see is learn and be curious, and I would select most like me. Next, I tend to change approaches based on feedback from others, or it often bothers me when people cannot follow a plan. Of course, the right side is a bad option. I tend to change approaches is a good option when you receive feedback, and I will select most like me. Here, the leadership principle I see in play is bias for action. I make mistakes in my work as much as anyone else. No, you don't make mistakes in your work. At least you don't claim that. So I try my best to work carefully, which is the right side. So I will select this, and hence I'll select most like me because I try my level best. This is the leadership principle where you insist on higher standards. Now, when I talk about the different leadership principles, there might be statements or phrases here which may not just be capturing one leadership principle, but may reflect 2 or 3 leadership principles. So what I've done here, for simplicity's sake, I've only picked up one. Anyways, let's move to the next one. It is best to give up on goals that are challenging and complete ones I know I can achieve. No, you should be working on goals which you think are not even achievable by you because you want to challenge yourself. So let's look at the other one. I complete what I start unless there is a good reason to change focus. Yes. Now here also note that there are certain statements which are just poles apart, like they are not even related to each other. For instance, here it is talking about goals and that you don't feel challenged enough in one statement, and the other statement is all about start unless there is a good reason to change focus, which is when you change focus, when you don't change focus. They are not related to each other at all. It's just that you're trying to pick the statement which is closest to the 14 leadership principles. And here I would select D because the leadership principle here is ownership. There might be certain statements which are kind of either or similar or fall in the same leadership principle. It's just that you'll now have to pick the one which is the least bad. Let's move to the next one. I would rather learn just enough to get by than spend a lot of time examining a topic. This sounds like a good option, but let's look at the other one. Sometimes I ask questions in order to understand concepts better. This is the leadership principle, learn and be curious. And hence I would select more like me just to throw in some variety. But this is the leadership principle I would be going for. Next one, I usually like to follow a plan, or once a while I get disoriented when faced with a change. Now these are kind of similar, which is that you follow a plan or you get disoriented when there is no plan, when there is change. So you have to again pick either or. And here I would pick, I usually like to follow a plan, because once a while I get disoriented is a bad option. So I won't select the one on the right, I would select the one on the left, and I'll select most like me. This is you are right a lot. That's the leadership principle here. I need all instructions before I begin a complex task. And second is meeting deadlines is nice, but not always an option. Now here, both the statements are not the best, because you should be okay working with the task even if you don't have all the instructions. And meeting deadlines is nice, but not always an option. So picking the least bad, I would not pick the one where I'm missing the deadlines, because that's not a good option. Even if there is a deadline that I'm about to miss, I should rescope the project and find other ways of delivering the most urgent and important part of the project on the deadline. So the least bad option here is I need all instructions before I begin a complex task. And given it's the least bad option, I don't want to pick most like me. I rather pick more like me. Also to throw in some variety. And here the leadership principle I see in play is bias to action. By the third or the fourth setback, I usually feel like giving up. I do not tend to give up a problem quickly. Here, the one on the right is the best selection, and I will select most like me. This is about ownership, the leadership principle, ownership. I do not like looking for new ways to do things, but I will if necessary. I am interested in developments in my field. Now, the first statement is kind of a not so positive statement, because you don't want to look for new ways of doing things. While the second one is I'm interested in developments in my field, which is you want to grow, you want to develop, and hence I would pick that and select most like me. So I'm interested in developments in my field, most like me. Next is I sometimes disregard feedback from others. I usually embrace change. Now, you don't disregard feedback, or you shouldn't be disregarding feedback from others. So the answer is I usually embrace change. That is the area we pick. And the leadership principle here in play is invent and simplify. And I will select more like me here just for variety, because it also says I usually embrace change. Ideally, you should be saying I always embrace change. So I'll pick more like me. Next one is I notice errors that others usually miss, or I am average when it comes to my ability to complete tasks on time. No, you're not average. You are above the bar, the bar that Amazon has. So you raise the bar, and hence the answer is somewhere around I notice errors that others usually miss. And here you can say most like me, and the leadership principle in play here is deep dive. I focus on goals or tasks that are important to me, even if they are boring. Occasionally I do meet my goals. Now, occasionally I do meet my goals is not good. You should be coming across someone who always tries to meet goals and has met goals. Obviously, there will be instances when you miss on goals. So I think that statement on the right is slightly bad versus the left one. I focus on goals or tasks that are important to me, even if they are boring. Yes, even if they are boring, but if they're important to you, they drive your passion, they drive the value, then you pick those. So I will pick most like me here. I may spend time making small changes to my approach, but mostly I use what works. This is one. I enjoy talking to people about a topic because they bring a fresh perspective to my thinking. Now, this is a good one. Let's read the first one again. I may spend time making small changes to my approach, but mostly I use what works. Yeah, it's talking about making small changes and you not being going out of the way, out of the box, rather being conventional. So maybe not the very good option. However, the next one, which is I enjoy talking to people about a topic because they bring a fresh perspective to my thinking, is good because you're kind of seeking multiple feedbacks and input. So most like me on the right. Next one, sometimes change is needed and other times it is not necessary. And the other one is I find new surroundings refreshing. Now, Amazon is built on the idea of change and bringing in new technology, invention and all. So I would pick the right side. I find new surroundings refreshing, and I would select maybe more like me just to throw in some variety, because the other point is saying sometimes change is needed and other times not. Maybe it's best to say that change is needed every time, or hence what I'm saying here is the left option is kind of the bad option, or more bad than I find new surroundings refreshing, which is more positive than the left option. Next one, I hardly ever fail to achieve goals versus some would say that I am reliable. I would pick I am reliable. I think it's more important for you to be consistent, reliable as against someone who is just achieving goals but not being the most reliable person in the shop, because you are not just working alone, right? You're working in a team where you have to show your reliability. People need to trust you. If you were working alone, then yes, you always achieve your goals no matter how, no matter what way. But when you are working with others, you need to be more reliable and consistent. So I would select most like me. And this is about insisting on highest of the standards. That's the leadership principle at play here. I have as much determination as the average person. No, you're better than the average, so not this side. If I have not found a solution to a problem, that means I have not searched long enough. Of course, I will select this. Maybe I'll select more like me, just to throw in some variety. Here, the leadership principle in play is deliver results. I take time each month to learn something new. Some days I spend a lot of time learning and other days I do not. In the first option, which is good, second option is also good. So you'll have to pick one or the other. I'll pick the second option, which is some days I spend a lot of time learning and other days I do not, because the learning is on job actually, or the best learning that happens is on job. So there are days when you learn more, there are days when you learn less, versus just saying every month I take out time to learn. You rather are saying I just learn on my job. So hence I would select here C again, just throwing some variety, and I'll pick more like me. Here it is all about learn and be curious. I would admit this is kind of a tricky one. However, I just find that saying some days or having more continuous learning approach is better than having a learning approach where you just block one time a month. Next is I enjoy both planned and unplanned activities, or versus I am a spontaneous person and I would not change that about myself. I would pick the left side. Again, both sides are positive, but I find the left side is more balanced, because there are days when you work on planned activities and there are days when you will have unplanned activities and you're comfortable with both. And I will select maybe more like me, just to throw in some variety. Usually for me, when I find that both statements are positive, I kind of stay in the middle, not pick an extreme like most like me. I pick more like me for the most part. I'm usually as productive as I can be when I work. People value strong work ethic. Again, both are positive. I'll select the left side. This is around invent and simplification, leadership principle, and I'll pick most like me. Even when I think I will fail at something, I always keep trying. Versus when I fail, sometimes I'm discouraged, but other times it motivates me. Now the one on the right is kind of a negative statement because you're discouraged at times. So I'll select even when I think I will fail at something, I always keep trying. And here again, out of variety, I will select more like me. I'm excited to solve new problems when I know there is someone who can help if I get stuck. There is always something new I can learn. Both are positive. I will select there is always something new I can learn, which is around the leadership principle, learning and being curious. And I'll select most like me. Next is it is easy to adjust to new demands, versus I am not bothered by new situations or experiences. And here again, both are positive. So I'll select I'm not bothered by new situation or experiences. This is bias for action, leadership principle, and I'll select more like me. Next is setting deadlines is sometimes hard to do but critical to delivering work, versus I will not overlook details to finish a task sooner. Here I will select I will not overlook details to finish a task sooner, because this is the leadership principle deep dive, and I'll select most like me. I usually finish what I start, but sometimes other things get in the way. I keep going even when it seems like I will never accomplish my goals. Here I will pick the right side, which is I keep going even when it seems like I will never finish my goals or accomplish my goals, because you are kind of determined, and this shows like the highest standards that you can deliver. And here, just through variety, I'll select more like me. Steep learning curves are more exciting than they are intimidating. Sometimes it is fun to learn new skills. Both are positive. I would pick the first one, which is steep learning curves are more exciting, just to show that you have passion for learning. And here the leadership principle in play is learn and be curious. And just to be safe or to add variety, you can select more like me. Next one, I adjust to new situations as well as my peers do. Now this sounds like you're an average individual. I always look for different ways to do things, even if others might not like what I come up with. Yes, this is our right a lot. That's the leadership principle at play here, and I'll select most like me. I often put items back in their proper place, which is you're organized. I never lose things. I will select the left side because that is an action versus the right side, which is a belief, and I will select most like me. This is insist on highest standards. That's the leadership principle at play here. I never let failure get in the way of accomplishing my goals, which is positive. Okay, I often will not move to another work stream until I have completed the one at hand. I would pick the left side versus the right side because the right side is not too positive, because there will be times when you'll have to work on multiple work streams and you should be okay with that. So the left side is I never let failure get in the way of accomplishing my goals, which is again insisting on highest standards, the leadership principle, and I will select most like me. Learning something new is exciting to me versus there are times. Next one is learning something new is exciting to me as against there are times when I'm curious to understand how a process works rather than just accepting it. So again, the one on the left, which is learning something new is exciting, is just a statement. However, there are times when I'm curious to understand. What we see on the left is not much action-driven statement. However, the one on the right explains the process, which is there are times when I'm curious to understand how the process works rather than just accepting it. So it says more, which is the leadership principle, learn and curious. So although both are kind of positive statements, I will pick on one on the right, and maybe you can just pick more like me to throw in some variety. Next is I'm extremely motivated to finish a task once I start versus only major hurdles seem to negatively impact my productivity. So here I will pick I'm extremely motivated to finish tasks once I start, which is to show bias for action. Because the other one, which is only major hurdles seems to negatively impact my productivity, is kind of negative because your productivity is being negatively impacted. So I'll pick the one on the left and pick most like me. And the leadership principle is bias for action. Next one is I do not know the answer to a question. I immediately start searching versus sometimes I see the wisdom in criticism offered to my work. Here, although both are positive, I would pick the left one, which is if I do not know the answer to a question, I immediately start searching, which is the leadership principle, learn and be curious. And I will select most like me because the other one is good. However, it's not reflective of the leadership principle or any leadership principle that I can think of, and hence I'll select the one on the left. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully this video was helpful for you to now have better understanding of what kind of questions to expect in the Amazon work style assessment and what is the rationale you should be using in order to answer them and ace them. In case you found value in this video, I'm sure you'll also find value in another video where I bring in an individual from Amazon who talks about how they were able to get a job in Amazon. So you can check out that video here. Other than that, there is another video where I talk about how you can ace the Amazon interview process. You can check out that video here. Thank you.